Hey everyone, hope you're having a wonderful Sunday evening. Today is the second Sunday of May, and so happy Mother's Day to those mothers out there. I want to just share a message with you today, just encouragement to you hopefully, and we're gonna go to Psalm 121 for that. So I'm gonna read Psalm 121. I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence comes my help. My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Have you ever been on a long road trip and decided to play a game or start singing to kind of pass the time? Or maybe you have a road trip playlist. You know, there's a lot of great songs that kind of go with going out on the road and just singing. A lot of times families will do that. Well, Psalm 120 through Psalm 134 is kind of like a road trip playlist. That were especially put together for the journey to Jerusalem. So, these songs would be sung by other, these people and their children. And they would, as they look to the hills, as they look to their journey, they would sing songs of confidence and faith in God and trusting in God and praying for his deliverance and his protection. These songs were not just to pass the time like our road trip songs possibly, but they had actual real meaning and they taught them something about faith. They taught the travelers and reminded the travelers that God was with them and that God was good. And, there were songs of faith and trust. We also are on a journey. Watchman Nee, a Chinese church leader of the 20th century, whose life ended in prison. The last 20 years of his life, he was in prison for his faith. But he said this, he said, the Christian experience from start to finish is a journey of faith. The Christian experience from start to finish is a journey of faith. He's right. He's absolutely right. And this journey has its ups and downs. It has its valleys. It has its peaks. Like the psalmist, when we look to the hills ahead of us, when we look to the journey ahead of us, we too should ask, from where does my help come? From where does my help come? But not only should we ask where does our help come from, but from who and how will our help come from? If we're to survive this road trip of faith, the words of the psalmist in Psalm 121 can be encouraging, inspiring, and truthfully, they should be on our lips and our hearts because we need to know where our help comes from. That's what I want to talk to you about today is our help and where our help comes from. The psalm before this plea the psalm before this Psalm 121. Psalm 120 is about a plea for relief from the enemy. It says something like, I've dwelt with the people who don't love peace for too long, and wanting to leave and kind of take out on that journey. And then Psalm 122 is, I was so glad when they told me I could come into the house of the Lord. And so we kind of have ourselves in between two situations where you're leaving the enemy and you're going out on the journey and where you have arrived at the house of God. And I think honestly that is where we need the help the most. It's not when we're at church. It's not when you are around people that can lift you up and encourage you in your faith. It's not even whenever we're in the heat of the battle and we make a stand and we make a statement. It's in the middle. It's in the day-to-day walk, the everyday life. It's the journey in between these places where we need the most help. And we need to know where our help really is coming from. It's in those times, and it's what those are is those uphill battles, those uphill journeys. It's in uphill battles, when you're going uphill, that's where you're most vulnerable to your feet slipping off the path. As Psalm 73, verse 2 and 3 says, But as for me, my feet had almost stumbled. My steps had nearly slipped, for I was envious of the boastful when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. It's in those times where our eyes can get off God that, that we lose our footing. When we start looking at other things that might, and I'm talking about, comparing ourselves to others, or, looking at our circumstances and getting hopeless and discouraged, and looking at our world and the things around it without considering the God that is with us, the God that is our help, without considering where our help is, looking down to our situation and not looking up to the God who is with us. Thursday, Dad and I were putting shutters on my house. And if you know me, you know how afraid I am of heights. But a few times I did get on the ladder. And for those that don't believe me, my family members probably, I did get on the ladder and I got proof. I had Dad take a picture. But I made sure that when I did get on the ladder, I didn't look down. I just focused on the area I was working on. I focused on ripping those shutters off. I was working on them. So, but when I did kind of look down every once in a while, I lost it a little bit. I was like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. I lost my focus. I couldn't focus on the work that I was doing. I was focusing on, okay, I don't want to fall. I don't want to freak out here. I don't want to panic. And so, it's easy sometimes for us to get our focus off something and to look and whatever it may be, our focus can turn from doing the work to just trying to survive, and in those times it's easy for us to slip. It's easy for us to fall, and it's easy for us to lose sight and lose our confidence in what God's doing, or maybe lose our resolve to do what God has called us to do. So, what do we do about that? Because we're all going to have those times. We're going to have those struggles. The question is, where does our help come from? Where does our help come from when we are at that moment where we might slip and we're struggling? We're in the middle of this uphill climb. Where does our help come from? Well, our journey's not just an uphill climb either. The elements, and the psalmist mentions that, the elements of both night and day can push against us, and the scorching sun and the dangerous nights and the moonlit night, they can prey on us. There are things that are dangerous for us. That there's things that are dangerous for our souls. There's things that can wound our souls. People and situations, there are circumstances that can wound us spiritually, mentally, and so on. Life is this journey of faith, especially, but life in general. There are challenges. There are dangerous parts. Helen Keller, you shouldn't maybe know who Helen Keller is. Pretty famous. She said, "Security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all." She should know, of course, considering she was deaf and blind from age 2. Think about every journey that she made, even from one room to the next was an adventure. We can't avoid the hills. We can't avoid the slippery slopes of life, right? We can't avoid the dark valleys, but we can know that we can have a help through it all. This adventure that we're on. So where does our help come from? I know I keep asking that. Where does our help come from? Where our help comes from the Lord. How is He our help? How is the Lord our help? Well, God is our help as our keeper. He's our help as our keeper. That's what we see in this passage. The psalmist says, look to the hills, seen the journey ahead, and ask the question, where does my help come from? And it seems like another voice, a reassuring voice. Maybe it's a reassuring voice of faith within him, like the Holy Spirit speaking in us maybe at times. But this other voice that says, the Lord is your keeper. The word translated keeper is rich in meaning when you look at this whole psalm. See, He keeps watch over you. He keeps guard over you, and he keeps you or preserves your soul. The word translated preserve is actually the same word for keep. So he preserves your soul or keeps your soul. First, he keeps watch over you. Okay? He keeps watch over you so that you do not slip. He does not slumber or sleep. That's how he's able to keep watch over us, is he does not slumber or sleep. In other words, God does not get drowsy and doze off. God is not the kind of father that, on Sunday evening is, watching the TV, but not really, and snoring while he watches it, right? That's not God's watching over you. That's not God's watching is this, eyes closed. I was watching you. No, God really is watching us. God doesn't doze off. He doesn't get drowsy. He doesn't sleep on us. He doesn't snore. There were stories of gods in this time period that the psalm was written. And, these gods, they didn't want to be disturbed. There were gods that were sleeping. There were stories about people waking up gods and them getting angry. Not our God. Not our God. He neither slumbers or sleeps. The best mother or father has to have some kind of sleep. I mean, in fact, I'm about to experience a newborn soon, and I know that my sleep is going to be limited, but I still am going to need some sleep, but not God. God does not need any kind of sleep. God's not tired of watching you. Listen, God is not tired of watching you. God is not weary from carrying you. It's not breaking his back. God's arms are not weak from picking you up. God doesn't go, I'm just too tired, honey. I can't do it. I'm sorry. You goofed up. You shouldn't have done it. He's not looking at you going, you tripped up. I'm not doing that. I'm too tired. No, God he's not that kind of God. He's not sleepy. He's not tired on us. He sees the danger. His eyes are ever on us. He keeps watch on us. He's caring for us, that loving watch over us, And the good thing about that is that he can guide us. If we'll listen to him, since his eyes are always on us and he's watching us, then he can guide us and he can lead us and guide our steps. He knows the danger ahead. He knows what we're dealing with and what we're about to deal with, and he's with us. Not only does he keep watch, though, he keeps guard. God keeps guard over us. He will not let the sun or moon strike us. It says he is our shade at our right hand. And shade and right hand, that's kind of like two metaphors being mixed together. The right hand is the weak side because, usually a soldier is holding their shield in their left hand. So their right hand is, that's kind of that right area is the weak area. That's the area that is unguarded, unprotected. And see, God keeps guard on our weak side. God keeps watch and guard on our weak side. God is strong where we are weak, right? God is strong where we are weak. In our weakness, he is strong. And so we see that with this psalm is that in our journey, when we, that side that's unprotected, that side that's the weak, the areas where we may struggle, I think about the language of the shadow and the shade. God protects us. It's like a mother hen gathering their chicks under the shelter of her wings. I think about Hannah, actually. Hannah covering Susanna in like an inch thick of sunscreens at the beach so that she doesn't get stricken by the sun. That could be her verse to Susanna: the sun will not strike you. And every 10 seconds, of course I'm exaggerating, but the point is, God is like that. God is like, I'm right here. This is your weak point here, but I am your shade. I'm your protector. I'm going to stand over you and watch over you. And think about that. Think about the sun hitting his back and not ours, right? The sun hitting his back and striking him. He takes the heat for us. God takes the heat for us. We find refreshment in the shadow of him taking the heat for us. Think about the cross and think about the shadow and us standing in the shadow of that. So he is our shelter. He is our shade at our right hand, at our weak point. God keeps guard over us. Lastly, God keeps us as our preservation. God keeps our soul. He keeps our soul from evil. He keeps us going and coming. He keeps us in our everyday life, and he keeps us from evil. Our soul is safe with God, our keeper. He has us. He knows us deeply, and he can hold us if we will. We can trust him with our soul. We can trust him with our life. We find that salvation in God and no other. We find it in God. There is no one else who has the words of everlasting life. There is no one else that we can find that satisfaction for our soul, that rest for our soul, that protection for our soul, that is forever, even forevermore. John 3:16, that classic verse, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. In other words, their soul, he will keep their soul. I mentioned Helen Keller earlier, and one important thing about the daring adventure that was her life, as she describes it as a daring adventure, is something I really like that she shared in a letter. In one of her letters, Helen told Bishop Brooks that she had always known about God, even before she had any words. Even before she could call God anything, she knew God was there. She didn't know what it was. God had no name for her. Nothing had a name for her. She had no concept of a name. But in her darkness and isolation, she knew she was not alone. Someone was with her. She felt God's love. And when she received the gift of language and heard about God, she said she already knew. That's so powerful. Before she ever even knew the concepts and the names and all that, she knew God. God is with us. Okay, God is with us. God is with us in the uphill battles. He's with us in the scorching heat of our daily lives. He's with us in the darkest valleys of isolation and darkness and fear in the night. God keeps watch. He keeps guard, and he keeps us from this time forth and forevermore. He's ever present. It's up to us. It's up to us to lift up our eyes to the hills. It's up to us to lift up our eyes and to ask, where is our help? Where does our help come from? Because I'm telling you, the answer is our help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. I hope you're encouraged by some of this today. And I hope as you go on your journey through the week and as you walk out this journey called faith, that you would know your help is from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And he is not only just the maker of heaven and earth, but he is the keeper of your soul, the keeper of your steps. He's the keeper over you, guarding you in your weaknesses and your struggles. He is there with you all the way. Amen.